Thank you. Mayor Pitts, I'd like to start with you on this question. You served in the Tennessee General Assembly. What tools do mayors have and wish they had from the state legislature?
Well, if they would leave us alone, that would be helpful. I think the state government can be a good partner to local government, but the trend toward preemption and keeping us from doing the things we need to do to meet the growth that's happening in our communities. There's no particular tools that I'll mention now, but I can tell you it really works and works as a partnership when you get your legislative delegation engaged in your community and understanding what the growth means. And so, but basically, if they just leave us alone, just leave us alone. Let us do what we need to do and respond to the needs of our community.
Mayor Moore?
Well, I really agree on the preemption aspect of it. Our General Assembly doesn't like Washington telling them what to do, and we don't like them telling us what to do. We feel like we know best what's is important locally, and let us make those choices. But I think there's several things that I would ask the General Assembly for, and to rethink at least. With so much growth occurring in the Middle Tennessee area, our big need is infrastructure, roads, and ways to get around. And in my opinion, we have an antiquated system as far as funding our roads. We're a pay-as-you-go state. That's a great thing to talk about, but we can't keep up. We're constantly behind on building and maintaining our roads. So I think we have to look at some other avenue other than gasoline tax and federal money, how we pay for our roads. Maybe we do need to consider some debt bonding on some of the roads long term. Secondly, the big challenge for our community is workforce housing. The tools that we've used in the past have been taken away by the General Assembly, where we could incentivize builders to build more affordable or workforce housing in our communities. So I would ask that they also consider that.
Thank you. Mayor Brown?
I'm right with them on the preemption. There's been a lot of activity this year that we've been very active. Certainly, there are some revenue streams that we would wish that they would share with us more. I feel like we, particularly in Middle Tennessee, are in a circumstance where the state has surplus funds and they're, very boastful. And I'm proud that they're attracting so many jobs to Middle Tennessee and all the migration of people to Middle Tennessee. But it's local communities who are shouldering the burden for accommodating those people and helping them have places to live. And I don't think they understand. I feel like at the same time they expect people to live in our communities, they're putting up barriers to them being able to live in our communities. And so it's a challenge, and I think it's a lack of understanding and frankly appreciation for each of our roles to make a healthy dynamic between all governments.
Thank you. Mayor Moore, I'd like to switch to a new subject, which is, I think, one of my favorites, perhaps your favorites, transportation. I think several of us here were transportation challenged in the sense that it took us a lot longer than we expected to get here. And I wanted to ask you, what is the regional solution? Because I was in the room for one of the breakfasts with the mayors, so shout out to Mindy Tate here from Franklin Tomorrow, but where you and the other mayors of Williamson County were talking about that transportation has to be regional. This was back in 2020. Of course, it was pre-COVID. But today, what are those conversations? We've seen that Mayor O'Connell from Nashville just released a couple of maps that are ideas for what may be on a ballot this November. Talk to us about your vision.
Well, first of all, you can't lay enough asphalt to solve the transportation problem. The transportation problem is solved by many different ways. I think you have to look at community design. You have to design your community such that areas are more walkable, mixed-use type developments. You need to make sure that there are other options that are available for people to get around, whether it's bike lanes, whether it's sidewalks, whether it's trails. Then we start looking at the more regional issues, and I applaud Mayor O'Connell on the way he's approaching the transportation problem in Nashville. The first thing has to be done is you have to have a robust system in the city. You can't build the fastest bullet train from Franklin or from Gallatin to Nashville and it succeed.
Or Clarksville.
or Clarksville. I'm sorry, Dr. Mayor Pitts. I was thinking about your property taxes. You might want to send some money to Franklin. But those type systems would fail unless you have that last mile solved. And so I believe that that's what Mayor Connell is trying to do, is solve that last mile problem so that bus routes are more predictable, that if you get on a bus that you get there faster than you would in your car. And quite honestly, some of us haven't reached the pain point yet that we're willing to even look at other transit options. But it's coming. You saw those figures that Michael Skipper showed you. We're going to be in gridlock by 2040 if we don't do something. So it's very important that we continue to do, probably the number one thing is continue to plan locally, plan regionally on how we're going to develop the transportation system so that we have that plan, and then find that dedicated funding such as Mayor O'Connell is trying to do, and also how we're going to fund it locally also.
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
Thank you. I agree entirely with what he said about community planning. I mean, the fewer cars that we can have on the road for the shorter distance, the less the traffic is impacted. When we talk about, and I appreciate Mayor O'Connell's pursuit of interconnectivity within the city of Nashville, because that's why I would never take the bus to Nashville. It doesn't even close to where I would want to go or need to go. And so if that can happen, I do think that there will be more interest in transit and then potentially more investment. But truly in the last decade, I have more and more felt like technology is going to outpace the funding to create the solutions that we need. And so I think technology on the roads, technology with vehicles, that's moving faster than the funding, it looks like at this point. And I do think it will help us. Mr. Skipper, you probably have put that in your forecast and say, no, it's not. And I respect your opinion more than my own. But the funding just hasn't been there. And we just feel like I feel like we are just always so behind addressing the transportation needs in this region. And I wonder at what point it starts affecting people's desire to live here. I mean, frankly, it affects my desire to live here to some degree, because I can't stand sitting in traffic like most of you. I was telling you, somebody got stuck on the James Robertson Parkway Bridge the other day, and I'm having a panic attack about it. But, I mean, it does change people's quality of life.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pitts?
Well, it took me 3 hours to get from my office in Clarksville to Middle Tennessee campus this morning because of traffic. And, I went 6 miles an hour through downtown Nashville trying to get around and through. So, yeah, we've got to address it, not just as a region, but within Nashville. And Mayor O'Connell's doing a great job putting a vision out there. But, yeah, every community has to take ownership in their piece of it. We made public transit a big part of our transportation plan, more regional hubs for our transit system to pull in and for people to transfer buses and sidewalks. As Mayor Brown mentioned, you got to get people by foot to and through certain areas. And it drives me crazy to go down a sidewalk and you can't get across the street because there's no pedestrian crossing there. So we're putting in more of those to get people safely across the street. So yeah, it's a variety of different things.
Thank you so much. When Michael had polled the room, everybody was excited about open space and about transportation, but none of you were excited about landfills and solid waste, if I recall correctly. But it is such an important issue, and I wanted to ask the mayors about what do we do? Because if we have such a short lifespan of what's left now, how do we plan for the next 20 to 30 years? And why don't we start with Mayor Brown and then go down the line?
I think we've all been asking each other that question for a while, and we've been having conversations with the state as well. And their position is it's not up to them to figure out where the next landfill goes. It's up to us. We actually had a forum in Gallatin on Monday with our chamber luncheon about solid waste because we were having issues with litter. We want people to be aware of the landfill issue and then just how, trash affects our environment. We actually did that, and people have been so interested by it, which we were kind of scared to bring it up, and people have not responded well, obviously. They're like, why hasn't this problem been brought to us before? I said, no, and you need to stop growing because this problem exists. But the problem exists for the whole state, really, but certainly for our region. And I used something that I thought was, a little sensational maybe, because I said something about imagine your trash bill costing more than your electric bill. And that could be a reality if we don't have anywhere to take trash. And we're working hard on recycling and diverting waste, but none of us are keeping up. And it does, and I mentioned the litter, but that is a serious frustration and challenge, I think, for all of us too, because just haulers get so much trash on the road. And then there are litter bugs. But we're going to have to find somewhere to have a landfill. There's going to have to be some kind of cooperation to make it appealing in some way for a community and continue to develop those diversion streams. And there's some really interesting things out there. I mean, we've heard some of us in this room have heard talk about Eastman's plan to take water bottles. We've certainly turned the corner a little bit in our little city with being able to use our own glass that we crush and making money off of cardboard, which we didn't for a long time. So, I mean, there is progress being made, but I don't feel like it's progress that's going to be quick enough to meet those numbers he put up there.
Well, thank you. Mayor Moore?
It definitely is a regional issue. I think that we have to look at what the new technology is and embrace that opportunity. We need to have less stuff going to the landfill, as you saw those numbers that Michael showed. We need to divert more. We're diverting about 20% in our community, and we have about 70% participation as far as recycling. But that's still not enough. We still have too much going to the landfill. We have to engage with the manufacturers who, whenever you order something, it comes in a box that you can barely handle, and then you pull out whatever it is, it's this size. We have to engage with the manufacturers too to have less packaging.
Thank you, Mayor Pitts.
I want to go back and touch on social media just for a minute. I have a theory. Those people on social media aren't real. They're all avatars. And they love to criticize. But when you meet them on the street, they're not critical. At least not to your face anyway, Mayor Moore. But solid waste, thank God the city of Clarksville doesn't have to fund solid waste, but we have to play our part. We don't have curbside recycling, a very robust program. The city doesn't pick up trash. We don't do that. We've never done that. It's all private hauler. So people have a tendency to think, well, that's somebody else's problem because they don't have to pay for it in terms of city taxes. But we've got to do something. And I want to applaud Michael and Michelle at the GNRC about this solid waste task force, strike force, that they've been leading with the state's engagement and involvement. I think there's going to be some good that comes out of that and some solutions, short-term and long-term. But they've got everybody at the table, which is a good thing.
Well, thank you. We're almost at the end of our conversation. I want each of you to think, please, about a 30 to 45-second final thoughts, tidbits that you'd love to leave this audience. While you do, we'll start with Mayor Moore, come down the line to Mayor Brown. But I want to thank MTSU, Urban and Regional Planning, Cumberland Region Tomorrow, Michael Skipper, who have GNRC, who have done such a great job of putting this together. And with that, Mayor Moore and then Mayor Pitts and Mayor Brown, what is your final words of advice to the audience?
Well, I think this is a great start for a community to come together and express their opinions and hear and get educated about the issues that are facing us as far as the place that we love so much, our homes and our communities. I would encourage each and every one of you to continue to be engaged, continue to educate yourself. When Mayor Carr or Mayor McFarland has some type of a public meeting opportunity to give input, I would encourage you to give that input, whether it's by email or in person. If there are forums as far as talking about housing or transportation, be involved with those. This is a community initiative, and your input is very important to us as elected officials. So thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Mayor Pitts.
Thank you, David. And as an Austin Peay grad, I'm just shocked y'all let me on campus here at Middle Tennessee. Just shocked. But thank you, Michael, holding up the red and white over there. Thank you to Middle Tennessee. Thank you, David, for facilitating this discussion. And I'll just kind of take Mayor Moore's comments one step further. Not only engage your local officials, but you got to engage your state delegations in helping us solve some of the issues. There's a lot of money in Nashville that they could be investing in local communities. And they listen to us, but they listen to you all more because you're voting as well. So I would just encourage you to do that.
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
Thank you, and also my appreciation to MTSU, the organizers, and you, David. I think this is a great start because I think more opportunities like this will expose more people to the intricacies associated with the challenges that we're facing. Because I think when you're in a community and you're dealing with the constituents in Clarksville or in Gallatin or in Franklin, somehow our residents think that we're the only community that has these challenges. We're actually having Mayor Moore speak in Gallatin sometime soon because I am convinced that our residents will have more trust in somebody from the outside explaining what the dynamic is regionally and why we're all facing these challenges and how we all have to work together. You've seen the terms like regionalism and what I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. They've become like really bad things, and you're like, what? And I've gotten several emails of late accusing us of trying to become a 15-minute city, and that's apparently a thing. I now know what it is, but it also, it's not to control the population. It is to reduce traffic and improve quality of life. That's the goal. And in my mind, and people have lots of conspiracies and often say, you give us way more credit for being organized than we actually are. Because no, local governments are not conspiring across the country to control individual residents, unless you've not included me. But I do think just the conversations, the understanding, and how things have changed and who the people are that are being affected. The older people, the divorced spouses, the children. I have a nephew that just moved back from Louisiana, and he's living in Westmoreland, which is in our county, but it's 30 miles from my house. And he would have liked to have been in Gallatin with his child, but it's a difficult circumstance. But if we talk about it more, I think people will have a better understanding and be more game to help the problem.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to our mayors.